Sterile Blade censored as woke journalists attack fans and Sweet Baby Tales. Ty, poka. Materiał o Sweet Baby, stary. O cenzurowaniu Sterile Blade'a. To będzie giga dobre. Ej, nie wiem, dla mnie to jest totalnie chore. Wychodzi gra, której główną wizją artystyczną jest przepięknie wyglądająca postać, ogromna ilość nieuzasadnionej przemocy i krwi. Ktoś kupuje grę, gra jest w ogóle oznaczona jako 18+. I ludzie mają problem z tym, że gra tak wygląda, jak była zapowiadywana. O co chodzi, stary? Ale ja nie potrafię zrozumieć jednej rzeczy. Może, weźcie mi to wytłumaczcie. Może ja już jestem jakiś odklejony, ale generalnie tak. Jak na przykład kobieta gdzieś pokazuje swoje wdzięki, nie wiem, na Instagramie, w social mediach, to się mówi, że fajnie, że jest, słuchajcie, że jest odważna, że nie boi się krytyki, bardzo często na jakichś strajkach, że jest wyzwolona i że kobiety takie powinny być, wszystko spoko. Po czym nagle, jak w grze komputerowej pojawia się kobieta, no to jest źle, stary. No to jest źle, bo ona jest seksualizowana. No to albo z jednej strony, no właśnie spoko, jeżeli pozwalamy na to, żeby każda kobieta przedstawiała siebie w taki sposób, w jaki by chciała siebie przedstawiać. I jeżeli modelka, która użyczyła swojego ciała do zmapowania jej w Sterile Blade'zie, jest tego świadoma, to czemu my będziemy zmieniać jej decyzję? Ja nie rozumiem tego. Serio, totalnie nie jestem w stanie tego zrozumieć. No to albo tak jakby ta linia narracji jest w ogóle nielogiczna. Dla mnie takie rzeczy są czarne albo biały, 0 albo 1. Albo idziesz, stary, w pełni logiką po prostu podążasz jedną albo drugą, a nie naginasz ją pod swoją tezę. Mnie to tak kurwa irytuje, serio. Widzowie, mnie to tak naprawdę irytuje. Tu twierdzimy, że jest spoko, ale tu nie będzie spoko. No kurwa.
Of course, reaching new heights. Along with suspicious claims of coordinated attacks, as well as misinformation being spread from censorship and more. We also have to talk about this other Sweet Baby consulted game called Tales of CENZURO. Because not only is that game's performance suspicious, but there's a really creepy connection that shows how deep that rabbit hole goes. We'll get there, but trust me, it's something you definitely want to know. Because if you thought the Sweet Baby nonsense was over, it's just getting started. But first, let's look at Stellar...
Jezu, co to są za słowa? Ej, będzie coraz gorzej, stary, w grach, no. My chyba dopiero po prostu zobaczyliśmy, co potrafią firmy pokroju Sweet Baby i serio dopiero chyba, kurwa, zobaczyliśmy, co one potrafią.
The game has been caught in the crossfires of journalists who were attempting to dissuade consumers from buying the game. We'll start with this article from that Park Place titled IGN...
Ej, ale co to kogoś kurwa interesuje? Ja tego nie rozumiem. Co cię to interesuje, czy ktoś kupi tą grę, czy ktoś nie kupi tej gry? Czemu ludzie mają jakieś takie dziwne podejście do życia, że oczekują od innych, że będą funkcjonować w taki sam sposób, jak oni chcą? No kurwa. Jezu, jak mnie to denerwuje, to na każdym polu. Ludzie, którzy nie jedzą mięsa i chcą, żeby inni nie jedli mięsa. No kurwa. I to ja to mówię jako osoba, która nie je mięso, mnie to irytuje. Ludzie, którzy są na diecie keto i mówią wszystkim, żeby przeszli na dietę keto. Ludzie, którzy nie chcą kobiet w grach, mówią innym, żeby nie grali w grę, które przedstawiają kobiety. Ludzie, którzy nie chcą tego, mówią innym. Przecież to jest za każdym razem, to jest tworzenie kolejnej ściany. Jeżeli my serio będziemy funkcjonować w taki sposób, gdzie każdy będzie w stanie powiedzieć, czego on by nie chciał, to my nic nie będziemy mieć. To trzeba jak najszybciej zrozumieć. Ktoś powie, że nie chce erotyki, ktoś powie, że nie chce przemocy, ktoś powie, że nie chce religii, ktoś powie, że nie chce inkluzywności, to my stickmanami będziemy grać w grach komputerowych. To po prostu to jest, widzowie, no nie wiem, ja tego no nie rozumiem, no. To jest właśnie piękno nowoczesnego, futurystycznego świata, w którym mamy okazję żyć, że każdy może robić to, co chce, każdy może kupować to, co chce, i my wprowadzamy coraz więcej censorshipu. Nie wiem, może to jest, wiecie, jakaś taka kwestia, że Stany Zjednoczone niedługo przejdą przez kurwa jakąś erę komunizmu, przez jaką my przeszliśmy 50 lat temu prawie. No chłopie. No, nagle problemem w grach komputerowych, słuchajcie, jest przemoc. Przecież z tej gry usunęli krew.
Kotaku accused of coordinating censorship campaign against Stellar Blade by accusing it of racism. If you've been keeping up with everything, you likely already know websites have been running with this story where the graffiti that says hard is right beside a sign that says off.
Dzisiaj wleciał materiał do mnie na kanał, gdzie też o tym rozmawialiśmy. Nie rozumiem tego do tej pory. Totalnie tego nie rozumiem. Nie wiem, o co w tym chodzi. dla mnie to jest taka abstrakcja i tu nie ma, nie wiem, totalnie nie wiem o co chodzi.
This, of course, is being pushed by journalists saying that Stellar Blade's developers are attempting to push a racist narrative by glorifying racist terms without actually saying them, but instead placing them within the background of the game itself. Of course,
Ale
this is
fajny
not
set.
but
Gdzie ten
instead
set jest dostępny w grze? Ej, ja chcę taki set.
placing them within the background of the game itself. Of course, this is nonsense, and it's already been patched out completely from the game alongside its day one patch. But what's very weird is that why would these sites even push this story knowing it would be patched immediately anyway? The reason is simple. They're trying to derail the game's success because of what it represents. On all fronts, Stellar Blade is the anti-AAA game in pretty much every sense, especially when compared to Western Studios' slop. For starters, Digital Foundry confirmed the game runs flawlessly in every mode you can imagine, with rock-solid 60 frames per second or 30 FPS with increased visual fidelity if you so choose. None of the modes are compromised or don't run well. Everything is as smooth as it gets right away. There's also no bugs reported whatsoever from any news outlet or review.
Ej, bez kitu. Ja w tej grze nie doświadczyłem żadnego buga, żadnego glitcha, nic. A mam w niej z 10 godzin już. Dzisiaj chyba będę kończył. Faktycznie.
Of the game. Stellar Blade legitimately is a AAA action RPG being released in the year 2024 where everything works right outside of the box.
No?
That's amazing. The last time I think we saw a game release this polished and perfect was maybe Final Fantasy XVI.
Nie no, snapping obiektów interakcyjnych jest off faktycznie, ale to nie jest glitch moim zdaniem.
In 2023, which also just ran flawlessly. And as someone who 100%ed everything in 16, I can confirm that that game never crashed or anything ever in my over 100 hours of playtime. I think we should be celebrating Stellar Blade for many reasons. I mean, for example, the game's day one patch adds New Game Plus, which is a great feature to have, especially in a game like this. Let's not forget that it took people like Insomniac Games 6 months to add New Game Plus to stuff like...
Ty, bez kitu. Pierwsza gra, która w day one patchu zamiast dostać fixy, to dostaje nowe tryby gry.
Spider-Man 2. And they also released new outfits that look terrible, by the way, for actual money as well. In Stellar Blade's case, the day one patch doesn't only add New Game Plus, it's actually quite insane when you go over everything they're adding for free on release day. New Game Plus will add 34 new outfits to Stellar Blade, with some of these outfits being for Lily, who's your blacksmith-like Souls character, and Adam as well. Most games would charge you extra for outfits like these.
34
Hell,
outfity
even
za
some
darmo.
Japanese games like Street Fighter charge an arm and a leg for bonus outfits, same with stuff like Resident Evil. But Stellar Blade's devs just casually went, here's 34 goddamn outfits for you to obtain in New Game Plus, but it doesn't even end there. Like any game with Soulsborne elements, you can level your gear to certain levels. In Dark Souls, it's usually level 10 being max and that's it. In Stellar Blade, it's 15. However, when you beat the game, that number you can level your weapon, it goes up to 40. Not only that, but your other gear like Body, Beta, and Tumbler also see increases that you can further enhance in New Game Plus as well. So you can further enhance Eve's health, Beta, which is like your skill magic system, and even your drone, which heals you. But it doesn't even end there. This is ridiculous. They're also adding 4 new Beta skills, so that's 4 new weapon attacks that you can obtain, 8 new skills to enhance your pre-existing skills that further enhance your combat abilities, and 5 more drone skills. This is the stuff a developer would add in an expansion or something. But they're just adding this for free on day one when you play the game.
Day one patch z darmowym
also
contentem.
massively expanding the skill tree system in New Game Plus as well, which further allows you to customize Eve and add specific bonuses to her skill set. Some examples given are being able to convert damage you take in combat into beta energy that you can then burst out and destroy enemies with. Another further enhancement is massively increasing E's attack speed so you can basically bully enemies into submission with lightning fast strikes. You can also enhance your
ludolog,
penetration towards enemy shields, and you can upgrade everything to Mark II gear as well. As you can see, all of these upgrades and enhancements are things that should be celebrated when it comes to what AAA gaming should be offering players. But instead, these journalists are more interested in telling you about some pointless graffiti on a wall instead. Also, I forgot to mention, enemies will obviously be stronger in New Game Plus, and enemies will have new positions, so you can bet your sweet butt cheeks that you'll be running into stronger enemies much earlier on too in New Game Plus. And this is what New Game Plus should be in
Co ty gadasz, że jest mapping przeciwników zmieniony w New Game Plusie? Giga dobrze.
a video game. It gives beyond enough incentives to push you to keep playing the game and actually allows you to further enhance your experience after you've already become comfortable with the game's many systems. This raises the
A
bar.
to jest w ogóle debiut tego studia, no nie? Oni wcześniej tylko zrobili jakąś gierkę mobilną nastawioną na jakieś interakcje erotyczne, po czym wypuścili tą grę Yesa.
Of what action RPGs should have included. What Stellar Blade is doing here, from its New Game Plus to the 34 new outfits and everything else. This is the peak of what over-delivering is, and in many Western studios' eyes, what Shift Up has done here is too much for one game. And they would rather sell you all of these free enhancements for actual money instead later on. This is why I tell people to vote with their wallet, because these are the kinds of things you deserve for the money that you spend on video games. Western devs and the journalists who defend them are always trying to normalize giving you less for more. Look at Suicide Squad, any Assassin's Creed game in the past few years, or the utter laziness that is Call of Duty, or even Destiny 2 when Lightfall came out.
Środkowy palec ta gra
Over-delivering is the sin
pokazuje
of complacency,
innym
and they
studiom
want you to
AAA.
be okay with that. And that's why you shouldn't reward games that give you basic stuff and then they try to paint the picture as if it's a good move on their part. Stellar Blade shits all over that and proves developers absolutely have the ability to give you what you want in video games. They just don't want to.
Dzięki
And they're just
Gaxak.
hoping that you're too stupid to realize and just ingest the slop they give you instead. No thanks, I'm good. Let's be real, if it wasn't for Asian developers, 2024 would be cooked for releases, but Japan and Korea are saving this year with bangers after bangers across the board. In terms of that hard R racist graffiti nonsense, one user named Lied15 found it suspicious how quickly everything surrounding this story came to be. The original picture came from a YouTuber named Lance McDonald, which was tweeted at 3 p.m. Also at 3 p.m., IGN magically had an article about that same screenshot available as well. According to Lance McDonald, the picture was known prior to them sharing it, and likely journalists got a hold of it in pre-review periods. But it's very weird that both Lance and IGN posted the exact same thing on the exact same time frame too. Then, as Lied15 points out, 25 minutes after IGN, Kotaku magically has an article about the same thing and everything. Lied15 would then say, so the original outrage bait was posted at 3 p.m. and IGN already had reached out for comment to Sony and gotten a response? Yeah, these
Kurwa.
effers are colluding.
Kto by się zdziwił, no nie? Że oni używają tego tylko i wyłącznie jako platformy do... Kto by się spodziewał? Że to nie chodzi faktycznie o zmienienie czegokolwiek, tylko o budowanie sobie pozycji. Dziwne. Kurwa. W życiu tak na to bym nie popatrzył.
It's just a coordinated attack on Kotaku and IGN's part to smear Stellar Blade in some way prior to release, which is a low blow. But it gets funnier still, cause in that day one patch, Shift Up removed the hard R graffiti and replaced it with the word crime instead. So now the wall says crime R or crimer, which another user named Delta169 then posted a screenshot of the word crimer on Urban Dictionary, which reads, crimer, an African American male who commits crime. So somehow, without knowing, Shift Up actually made the graffiti even more condescending, which is hilarious. But again,
Nie, no to już nie ma, to już nie jest, słuchajcie, powoli taka sytuacja, że tutaj za każdym razem coś się znajdzie. No nie wiem, jak to skomentować. Nie, no nie mam pojęcia. Mi się wydaje, że po prostu jak będziesz chciał coś znaleźć, to znajdziesz w każdym produkcie. Na siłę, jakbyś chciał dodać jakąś ideologię. Jak będziesz chciał to zrobić, to oczywiście, że będziesz w stanie to zrobić. Pytanie, czy jest sens się tak doszukiwać czegoś takiego.
you can't really blame them. I mean, they're Korean devs. They likely have no
To są dewowie z Korei. Oni nie mają pojęcia, że nie wiem, że będzie występowało takie słowo w jakimś slangu staroamerykańskim. No serio, sam się dopiero teraz o tym dowiedziałem, że w ogóle coś takiego istnieje.
idea what Americanized Urban Dictionary terms even mean. They just needed that area of the game to exemplify that it is crime-ridden and shady. But it's still hilarious that instead of hard R, now we have crimer. You can't make this up, it's hilarious nonetheless. I hope they don't change it again, and if they do, I hope it gets turned into an even worse term, because that would be funny. One of the funniest reviews for Stellar Blade was this from Metro.com, which is titled Stellar Blade Review Fighting Through the Male Gaze. I'll read some of it because it's ridiculous, and I quote, "We really wish Korean developer Shift Up hadn't chosen to design its protagonist the way it has. Whether you find it offensive, absurd, or irrelevant, it's become such a..."
Czemu miałbyś uznać wygląd postaci w grze za obraźliwy? Czy my naprawdę żyjemy w czasach, w których dobrze wyglądająca seksowna postać jest obraźliwa dla kogoś? Serio? To jest obraźliwe, jak ona wygląda? No ale przecież takie rzeczy można przenieść w drugą stronę. No jakby wyglądało inaczej, no to wystarczy, że po prostu ktokolwiek inny powie, że inny typ wyglądu postaci jest dla niego obraźliwy. No przecież to jest martwe koło, stary. Przecież to jest totalnie martwe koło. To nie ma sensu taka argumentacja. To jest pozbawione jakiejkolwiek logiki. Za każdym razem to ja mógłbym powiedzieć, że stary, postać w Dark Soulsie jest dla mnie obraźliwa. No i co? No jaki to ma kurwa sens? Uznamy, że istnieje jeden możliwy wygląd postaci w grze, który nie wiem, nie będzie powiedzmy nigdy umieśniony, bo ktoś nie ma mięśni i to będzie dla niego problemem. To jest złe?
...distraction that too few people are going to end up talking about the game itself. The unfortunate truth is that Stellar Blade is a terrible advert for female representation in gaming, but it is an excellent action game and one of the best exclusives on...
Jezu, ale ci ludzie, oni nawet nie potrafią, oni nawet nie są świadomi, że istnieją tytuły, które reprezentują to, co oni by chcieli. Ja to non-stop powtarzam. Kurwa, moja ulubiona postać ever w gamingu to jest stara, 70-letnia torba, bez oka, bez ręki. Kobieta. To jest moja ulubiona postać w grach. Serio, naprawdę, jak ktoś chce na siłę uznać, że coś jest problemem, to ktoś uzna, że coś jest problemem. Najlepiej napisana ever postać w gamingu to jest Kreja, kurwa, z Kotora 2.
PlayStation 5. The odd thing about Stellar Blade is that while it looks like it was...
Ale gdzie my poszliśmy w złą stronę, że ludzie oczekują, że ich sposób rozumowania albo ich wygląd będzie odwzorowaniem w grze komputerowej. No przecież ja i Eve z Stellar Blade'a nie mamy nic wspólnego, no przecież ta postać mnie nie reprezentuje. To może też powinien być obrażony, bo nie jest mężczyzną, stary. No nie, sorry, nie mogę, to jest naprawdę bardzo absurdalne podejście.
Designed by a horny 15-year-old boy, there's very little sexual content in terms of what anyone says or does. By comparison, Bayonetta, who was originally designed by a woman, is constantly using her sexuality to mock both her opponents and allies. But Stellar Blade protagonist Eve is far more subdued and unemotional. Almost no one reacts to the fact that she looks like a supermodel and is dressed so absurdly for battle. Her first outfit features knee-length hair and a cross between a wetsuit and an evening dress, while she wears a tie and high heels to the point where it almost feels like her character is a mod replacing a far less exploitative character design. Shift Up is not a new developer, but as far as we can tell, all they've done before is mobile games featuring even more dubious portrayals of women. There's no point mincing words. Stellar Blade's presentation, including its horror-inspired monsters and gory moments, are extremely juvenile and frankly pathetic in terms of Eve and the other women. Eve's implausibility, weightless boob physics, and gigantic posterior would be laughable if they weren't so creepy, even with the excuse that she's based on a real Korean model. If you want to have attractive women or men in your game, then that's one thing. There's always a risk of objectification, but less so when the characters look and talk like actual people. Not only is Eve's preposterously proportionate...
Ale czemu my mówimy o uprzedmiotowianiu nieistniejących postaci? Kurwa, czy ci ludzie są świadomi tego, że ona nie istnieje? W grze, której leje się krew i flaki, ludzie mają problem z tym, że baba ma dużą dupę?
Body and ridiculous dress sense impossible to justify, but there's no wit or cleverness to the game's script to acknowledge what it's doing. If you can look past that, and we're not saying anyone should, Stellar Blade is a very good action game. There are some rough edges, but given Shift Up's lack of experience, they're easy to forgive, with the biggest problem in gameplay terms being the game's odd pacing, which is far from non-stop action. As a result, we're very keen to see what Shift Up does next, although in terms of how they treat female characters, we hope Shift Up manages to grow up, end quote. I love this review because it's just the Metro staff trying to mental gymnastics their way around what's happening, and their actual gamer brain is clearly fighting tooth and nail against their journalist brains, and it's amazing to see if I'm being honest. This part especially where they say, the unfortunate truth is that Stellar Blade is a terrible advert for female representation in gaming, but is an excellent action game and one of the best exclusives on PlayStation 5. It's like there's two wolves inside of this game's journalist. One really wants to pander and be offended, but the other is like, God damn it, this game is amazing. I love to see it. They can't find much to complain about. They're like, yeah, the game is over-sexualized and we hate it. We also hate the jiggle boob physics, even if it's based on a real Korean woman. You can just see the cogs moving in their brain as they write their article, as every complaint they have is immediately remedied and justified by objective, real-world...
Nie no, moim zdaniem problem takich artykułów jest to, że oni nie szukają logiki, a oni szukają po prostu odbiorców, którzy myślą w taki sam sposób jak oni. I monetyzują tych odbiorców, którzy myślą w taki sam sposób jak oni. To jest tyle. Nie chodzi o klarowność przekazu, to chodzi o to, żeby zrobić pieniądze na ludziach, którzy chcą przeczytać taki artykuł i tyle.
Reasons and actual competent game developers making a fun as hell game. They want to hate Stellar Blade so badly because it doesn't fit their ideals, but they can't come up with much of anything in the way of actual problems.
Nie no,
with
mnie
it.
to tak wkurwia jako gracza, stary, serio, że gry stały się teraz podstawą do walk jakichś politycznych. Jezu, jak mnie to wkurwia.
It would have been much easier for
Niech
journalists.
oni spierdalają z tymi swoimi rzeczami, nie wiem, gdzie indziej.
The Stellar Blade was a bad game, and they just hate that it's actually great. It's the Hogwarts Legacy paradox all over again. Even though so many review sites and gaming publications were boycotting the game, they still reviewed it very high because they realized that despite their collective bias, good game design will always prevail. Stellar Blade is very clearly a winner in terms of review scores and sales. I mean, it's #1 across the board with every country when it comes to Amazon sales at least. I have a feeling this game will sell more than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, if you can believe it, but it's probably
Dzięki
gonna
Twister
happen. I
Mackenzie.
wouldn't even be surprised if it outperforms Final Fantasy XVI either, because the hype and discourse surrounding this is a perfect storm for big sales. Then you have this guy who looks like a male predator that works at videogamer.com, who gave the game a 60 out of 10, one of the rare bad reviews for Stellar Blade. They said, the worst thing about Stellar Blade is that if I ever had any semblance of interest in the story, characters, or narrative, this was promptly stamped out due to the egregious levels of hypersexualization of Eve. Oh, someone is telling us a story.
Naprawdę można zaniżyć ocenę gry tylko dlatego, że uznasz, że jest zbyt seksualizowana? Kurwa, giga sensowne, nie? Giga stare sensowne. Ale nawet jeżeli coś jest seksualizowane, to jest wizja artystyczna. Nie możesz obiektywnie ocenić czyjejś wizji artystycznej. No albo ci się podoba, albo ci się nie podoba, no nie? Albo ona ma sens, albo ona nie ma sensu. Jesteś w stanie szukać, wiesz, jakichś takich powiązań, czy ta wizja artystyczna pasuje do gry. Ja wam powiem, że kurwa, oczywiście, że tu pasuje. Bo masz brutalnie, ohydnie wyglądające potwory stworzone przez Azjatów, które są posklejane z kilku różnych ciał, wypadają z nich flaki, leje się z nich jucha i po drugiej stronie masz pięknego androida. To jest taki niesamowity kontrast to buduje. To jest świetna wizja artystyczna. To jest podstawa budowania, stary, kontrastu, kurwa. Nie wiem, w czymkolwiek, stary. W muzyce, w malarstwie, stary, w rysunku, kurwa, w filmie, w grach wideo. To jest tak podstawowa wizja artystyczna. Ja nie wiem, jak można tego kurwa nie zrozumieć i powiedzieć, że problemem jest to, że postać jest seksualizowana. Właśnie o to chodzi w tej grze, że jest.
About how the world got destroyed while Eve is standing there in a revealing bunny outfit, giving these emotional reactions and trying to make you care about what happens, and it just doesn't work. Throw in a smattering of weird camera angles and jiggle physics, and you'll realize that Stellar Blade exists as a fan service game. Granted, outfits don't change your stats, so you can cover Eve up. Stellar Blade also doesn't take itself too seriously on that front, so if you're okay with it, then that's fine. On the other hand, I think it's fair to say that Eve's design is questionable and she only exists to serve as glorified eye candy at best. There's nothing wrong with attractive characters, but revealing outfits are the norm for the female characters in Stellar Blade, while the men are covered head to toe in what can only be called appropriate clothing. The reason why this review makes no sense is because they said they can't take the game seriously when someone in a bunny suit is talking about the end of the world. But my brother in Christ, you are never forced by the devs to wear those outfits if you don't want to. So this made-up scenario you came up with as to why the game's story and characters cannot be taken seriously due to this bunny outfit you claim, is simply because you went out of your way to put on the bunny suit yourself. No one told you to do that, nor did the developers force that outfit onto your Eve's body. You did that yourself, which means you went out of your way to get offended by tailoring your own game experience in order to validate your criticisms. You could have
Bez kitu, to jest trochę tak jakby powiedzieć, że Lara Croft jest niepoważnym tworem, ponieważ był kod na to kiedyś, żeby Lara Croft była naga. No jak ty masz poważnie brać narrację gry, jeżeli główna bohaterka jest naga w grze?
easily just played the game in the other much less revealing outfits. You know you could have done that, but you didn't, and then you ousted yourself in your own review and showed that you're just a moron who wanted to push a very specific narrative on purpose. This is like someone saying Dark Souls is too hard, and then you...
Żyjemy w świecie, w którym istnieje erotyka. Erotyka jest częścią, może być częścią wizji artystycznej. Kto by kurwa pomyślał? Chłopie, w życiu bym na to nie wpadł, nie? To jest tak jakby powiedzieć, że te wszystkie jakieś takie, wiecie, posążki sprzed kilku tysięcy lat też seksualizują kobiety. Kojarzycie ten taki bardzo znany posążek tej krągłej kobiety, który był wtedy uznawany za symbol piękna? No przecież to też była seksualizacja kobiet. Wenus z Milo też, stary, no seksualizacja, no stoi narodziny Wenus, stary. Też seksualizacja, no stoi na muszli, stary, która wiadomo, co może jeszcze przypominać. Wenus stoi na muszli, rodzi się, ledwo się tylko zakrywa. No przecież seksualizacja, no kto, jak to tak mogło być? No przecież idąc takim tokiem rozumowania, jesteś w stanie, no już w antyku, stary, znaleźć to.
Find out they deliberately took all their armor off, never leveled up, and
Chłopie, a narodziny Adama? Jak Adam też nagi cały leży, pięknie wyprofilowany, z pięknymi mięśniami. Chłopie, też mnie to kurwa obraża. Ja nie mam takiego ciała jak on na tym fresku. Nie, to zamalować to powinni, stary. Gorzej, to jest jeszcze w kaplicy. To jest w obiekcie sakralnym. Nie, daj spokój.
Used bare hands to fight. Like, no shit, it's going to be way more difficult when you go Air 2, which makes no sense. They gave it a 67 out of 100 and said, while discussion is sure to be dominated by the sexualization of lead character Eve, looking past that, Stellar Blade provides a solid action experience for fans of the Souls-like genre. How the hell is the game, in your own words, a solid Souls-like game, but you give it a scathing score of 67
nie,
out
no
of 100?
dla mnie to jest takie dziwne. To jest, ja to widzę tak samo, jakbyś kupił Bajonetę i byłbyś zdziwiony, że no Bajoneta jest tak klasycznie jak w anime odklejona i... Nie, ja nie potrafię pojąć tego. Mam wrażenie, że to jest wpisane w typ produktu. To jest jakbyś poszedł na horror i był zdziwiony, że jest straszny. Kupujesz azjatycką gierkę, gdzie kobieta jest główną postacią, ty wiesz, jak to będzie wyglądało. Tu nie ma żadnego zdziwienia. Ty nie kupujesz kota w worku.
Can anyone tell me how that makes sense? Eve's sexualization docked your score 33 points from 100 to 67. Just like that. Yet another review that should be removed, to be honest, because it's so obviously biased. Then you got this game called Jake Steinberg, who looks like Megamind, that responded to the whole hard R Stellar Blade controversy, where they said, if only there was some kind of group you could contract to give media a, I don't know, sensitivity read and avoid creating work like this for yourself in the future. What Jake is insinuating here is that if...
Beka jest największa beka jest taka, że ci ludzie próbują zrobić tej grze na złość, a dają jej jeszcze więcej, słuchajcie, trakcji w internecie.
Sweet Baby was involved with Stellar Blade, the hard R thing would have never happened. No thanks, Jake. If Sweet Baby was involved, Stellar Blade would be god-awful and nobody would play it. Speaking of Sweet Baby, there's this new game that's come out called Tales of Kanzara Zhao, which is based on Kenyan culture and the loss of family from the creator's perspective. It's caused quite a ruckus, and yes, it is 100% Sweet Baby consulted through and through.
Okay.
Brutus Rambo added it to the list, and people got mad saying it was racist, but the more you look into it, the worse it gets. So Zhao is a Sweet Baby product, and one YouTuber named Keith, who I don't know much about, he does like skits on YouTube, but he's been defending the game a lot lately. And he pretty much said that Grums and anybody who refuses to buy Zhao is a racist because they're boycotting the game because it's...
Co? Jak nie kupiłeś tej gry, to jesteś rasistą?
Based on Kenyan culture, and no, Keith, that's not why it's happening. The game could be about King Arthur and the Round Table. The reason why people are boycotting it is simply because it's Sweet Baby infected. It has nothing to do with the actual Kenyan side of the game, as we know Sweet Baby has worked on stuff like God of War Ragnarok, which has Norse mythology. Pretty much the exact opposite of Zao, but even then, they're still there. Although in Ragnarok's case, not many people knew about Sweet Baby, so they got a pass at the time. But now, in retrospective, it's much different, but I digress. Keith even dismantles his own argument, and like that Stellar Blade Metro review, you can see his brain fighting with both sides while he realizes his own bias but doubles down anyway. So people were arguing about how
Ta gra gameplayowo dobrze wygląda. No tak o Metroidvanie, nie?
and why would Sweet Baby be involved, to which Keith then said, I think in order to get the proper funds from shareholders, certain things need to be checked off. Consulting Sweet Baby Inc. might be one of them. Yes, Keith, you are now starting to come to the same realization many of us have as well. You're right on the money. The reason why Zao exists is the same reason why many other games do as well. Whenever you accept shareholder money and such, strings are attached, and obviously when it comes to Zao, the studio that made it had to accept the terms of the shareholders. And one of those is absolutely Sweet Baby nonsense being involved. But it gets deeper than that actually, so the game was founded and all
Ej, widzowie, całkowicie szczerze, nie? Teraz jak robisz grę, jaki jest twój profit z zatrudnienia Sweet Baby do konsultacji? W sensie, jak to ma pomóc w wytworzeniu gry, bo ja nie rozumiem. A teraz jedynie się to przyczynia do tego, że ludzie bojkotują twoją grę, bo nie chcą ich wspierać.
that by a guy named Abu Bakr Salim, who voiced Bayek in Assassin's Creed Origin. He's also the founder of the studio, which is called Surgeon Studios, by the way. Anyways, one user on Twitter named Schlemel, which I am absolutely 100% mispronouncing, ended up discovering something that Grums then revealed thanks to them. So it turns out that Salim guy who founded and made the Zao game is actually much deeper with Sweet Baby than originally revealed.
Oh.
They discovered that Salim is one of the 4 members of a company called Bebe Sucre Ltd, or Sugar Baby Ltd in English. Yeah, the name is creepy and obviously very close in name to Sweet Baby, but it gets weirder still. Turns out the other 3 employees or officers of this Sugar Baby company are David Bedard, Amy Lee Shaw, and Kim Belair. All 3 of these people are directly tied and work at Sweet Baby. And actually, David and Kim are the co-founders of Sweet Baby, so Salim is more than in bed with the founders of Sweet Baby. He's literally in a startup business using similar terminology and all of that with them as well. So any sort of victim mindset nonsense people want to push saying, oh, you're just being racist to the Zao game, remember that it's not because the game has Kenyan culture or anything like that. It has everything to do with the fact that the game is a Sweet Baby product through and through, quite literally, as Salim has obviously opened up a business with those co-founders and writers as well. Weirdly too, David and Kim both met at Ubisoft as well, and Salim obviously is known for Bayek, which Assassin's Creed is an Ubisoft franchise too. So it's very likely that all of these people met within the same environment and all of that, birds of a feather if you will. And again, anyone claiming racism against boycotting Zao is moronic, by the way, since people boycotted stuff like Suicide Squad all the same. And by the way, currently Suicide Squad has a little over 100 players on Steam playing it, which is abysmally bad. I mean, look at this chart. What's even more pathetic is that Marvel's Avengers, which is a genuinely dead game, like it's delisted and all of that, and you can only play it if you still have it downloaded, it actually has more players than Suicide Squad right now on Steam. That's really bad, but guess what? It somehow gets worse. That Zao game just came out like a few days ago and had a peak of players on Steam around 230...
Widzowie, ironicznie wydaje mi się, że jakbym wypuścił grę za, słuchajcie, $1, która by nie miała żadnego kontentu, to by miała więcej all-time peak niż kurwa to. Ludzie na złość kurwa to podbili.
users when it released, which is down to around 190 right now. These numbers are abysmal for any game, especially a new release that is also an EA original. The game is absolutely not making enough money to justify its own existence, although on PlayStation anyway, Zao is a part of PlayStation Plus. So you can play it for free, I guess, if you're subscribed, but those player count numbers don't really matter because, again, you don't have to actually buy the game in order to play it. But this is what the curse of the Sweet Baby does. We see that your game is attached to this sort of nonsense and people just vote with their wallets. It has nothing to do, again, with the fact that the game has black culture in it. Suicide Squad was boycotted. Alan Wake 2 is literally named after a white guy, and that game underperformed too. The only connecting tissue is that they're all Sweet Baby products, and this is the future of games that align themselves with these DEI practices. Players are more informed than ever before, and they will rightfully ignore and refuse these games on principle alone. You can call them racist or whatever phobic you want to pull. The end result is that we do not have to support your games if they push the ideological stances that are very clearly ruining video games. And obviously, based on Squad and Tao's player counts, pretty much nobody is playing these games either at release or months later. And as I was making this video, I was talking to Grums and others about a certain...
To jest największy problem, że po prostu znalazło się grono ludzi, które na siłę chce przepchać swoje ideologie i stwierdzili, że gry komputerowe będą do tego świetną podstawą. I oni nie chcą stworzyć dobrej gry komputerowej, nie, oni chcą mieć platformę do forsowania swojej ideologii. A my nie chcemy tego w grach, my chcemy grać w gry.
Outfit in Stellar Blade that I was suspected was censored, and well, it may be. Here's a look at one of the bunny outfits, so we can see that they added a black shirt over the cleavage in an update.
Yes.
While some may see this and go Stellar Blade pre-order cancelled, I wouldn't do that. Because the more money and notoriety Shift Up gets with this release, the better they will be able to resist the moronic censorship changes in the future. So while yes, this does suck, as it is clearly censorship, if we want to ensure it doesn't happen in the future, then Shift Up needs to get more prominent and powerful to be able to push back against such demands. Currently, they're pretty small, all things considered, but I do think this change sucks, but it isn't the end of the world. So in my opinion, do not boycott Stellar Blade and stand firm. Enjoy the game, as there's still plenty of fan service across everything else. It's one outfit, it sucks, but let's hope it stops there. If it doesn't, I'll let you know. Some online are saying it's two different outfits, but as of the making of this video, the game comes out tomorrow, or I guess today as you're watching this.
Tak, no, ludzie chcą odpocząć przy grach, filmach, a nie znowu oglądać polityczne manifesto, to chodzi.
Going forward. For now, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and share, and thanks to my patrons too. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay based, and I'll see you in the next.
Mi się wydaje, że my w Europie dlatego mamy takie inne spojrzenie na to, bo my przeszliśmy przez komunizm. Wiele krajów faktycznie przeszło przez komunizm i my wiemy, że nie chcemy wrócić do jakiejkolwiek cenzury. Wiemy, z czym się to wiąże, wiemy, jaki to miało negatywny wpływ na rozwój naszej kultury. Dlatego bardzo mocno na to, słuchajcie,